Welcome to the Hidden History Happy Hour podcast with Alex Dean and Brian Cunningham. Here we have a drink, have a laugh, and you just might learn something about our favorite stories from history.
Please visit our website at hiddenhistoryhappyhour.com and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you like the show, please rate us 5 stars and leave a review. Cheers.
Welcome back to Hidden History Happy Hour with Brian this week. Yes, believe it or not, Alex Dean, my cohort in crime, is on assignment this week. So we are going to have a very intimate show, just the two of us, hopefully the 2 million of us that are out there. I will try to soldier on without Alex. I feel like Costello without Abbott, like Hardy without Laurel, like McGarry without Bartlett, like Peppa without Salt, like a lone blowfish with no hootie in sight. But you get the idea. If all of this troubles you as much as it does me, fear not. Alex Dean will be back for a full-blown episode of Hidden History Happy Hour next week. And hey, this one will only take you 10 or 15 minutes to get through. It's a Hidden History Happy Hour quickie to see if you like a couple short stories and just a little bit of intro, and let us know what you think. Either DM us on Twitter or email us on hiddenhistoryhappyhour@gmail.com. Now you might say, Brian, you don't have the stories. Alex has the stories. Alex wrote the book, Lessons from History. What are you going to do? Well, fortunately, as Foghorn Leghorn would say, we had our feathers numbered for just such an occasion. And now I realize I've made about 9 references that only people over 50 will get. But that's all right. It'll be a good chance to see what our audience is like. Now, listeners, we realize this is a happy hour show. And based on lots of your feedback, I'm not saying mostly from my high school friends, but based on lots of your feedback, we haven't done enough with the booze aspect of our show. I'm going to let you behind the curtain a little bit today. Thanks to my lovely, brainy, and wonderful partner Lisa's gift of the Whiskey of the Month Club to me, I am drinking a Starward single barrel, believe it or not, Australian whiskey. But lest you think we're playing favorites on the continent, it's aged for 3 years in a French oak red wine barrel. So we're covered on the European front. France is going to be important in one of our stories. And we're covered in the global front as well, because this is some excellent Australian whiskey. Now, first up today, from Alex's book, Lessons from History, is an only too timely saga of the fortunes and the vagaries of war, and how sometimes, even given overwhelming odds in one country's favor, war can turn in breathtaking and terrible fashion, especially if the Russian winter is involved.
Vilnius is the capital of Lithuania, and it was one of the powerhouses in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth that once dominated its part of Europe. It was a 1 million square mile giant, which is now largely forgotten.
When was this, Alex?
It was, you motherfucker. That's an accurate reflection of its size at the height of the early 1600s. How about that in your face?
Got it.
But I was on a roll there. And I was going to tell you the fact that you would like that it was the birthplace of Marco Remius of the Hunt for Red October. How about that? That's where I was going when you came up with that. But in between the glory days of the Commonwealth of Polish Lithuania in the early 1600s, Brian, and today, the Baltic city was a place on the way to other places. And it was a place on the way to other places that were often at war with one another. And there is a monument in Vilnius which tells that story. On the west side of the monument, which one would pass on the way to Moscow, there is a plaque. It says, Napoleon Bonaparte passed this way in 1812 with 400,000 men. And on the eastern side, facing it, is a second plaque. Napoleon Bonaparte passed this way in 1812 with 9,000 men.
Ouch.
When people say not to underestimate the Russian winter, you should listen.
Alex's second story today is not so much timely as it is timeless, and it involves manners.
The ancient Greeks gave us the Olympic Games, which was a notion produced and fostered in one of the rare times in which the ancient Greeks weren't battling against their hated water-to-the-knife rivals, the ancient Greeks. And legend has it that one day at the Games, there was an elderly man slowly making his way around the stadium, trying and failing to find a seat. And his doddery progress was being jeered by the crowd until he reached the stand that was occupied by the Spartans. And as one, every Spartan stood up and offered their place, including those who were even older than the man himself. And the crowd in the arena was silenced by this, and then they applauded. And the old man turned to those nearest to him and said, "All Greeks know the right thing to do, but only the Spartans do it."
Hearing Alex tell this story, I must say, made me reflect on what I've come to believe strongly in the last few years, and especially the last few weeks. Whether it relates to the shocking industrial scale war crimes being perpetrated now in the very heart of Europe, or moving from the gravest of all topics to something a bit more entertainment related, the now infamous Will Smith slap of Chris Rock at the Oscars. What I've come to believe is this, ladies and gentlemen: just because something is unthinkable does not mean it's impossible. And on one level, these are existential questions for presidents and prime ministers and philosophers and ethicists and historians. But on another level, just return your mind to preschool and kindergarten. These are questions of do what's right. We've spent, particularly in America and Western Europe, the last 6-7 years or so, convincing ourselves that the social compact that we all signed up to, whether through our founding generations or through more recent constitutions and treaties and agreements, or just the way we conduct ourselves, you don't launch armed tank invasions against sovereign countries. You don't resort to violence on international television, no matter how insulting and provoked you were. You don't try to overturn democratic elections. We must find our way back to the central norms of civilized society. It comes down to this, listeners: just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I, for one, easy to say because my co-host is not here to disagree with me, but I think he would agree, feel like we need to bring back shame. According to Alex's story, the Spartans knew this thousands of years ago. We seem to have collectively forgotten what the norms of civilized behavior are. If we lose that, then the social compact unravels. And what we're left with is chaos. And we don't want that. I certainly don't want that, because I'm not going to be one of the strongest that's going to survive. Think before you speak. Think before you strike. Remember the social compact. And on a lighter note, anyone of our listeners who will or could be in the area of New York City on 6 June 2022, please join us for a big live Hidden History Happy Hour extravaganza with Alex and me, Brian, and some very special guests. You seriously will not want to miss it. Email us at hiddenhistoryhappyhour@gmail.com or direct message us on Twitter, and we will hook you up with tickets and maybe some coveted backstage passes. And Alex, come back immediately. We need you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Hidden History Happy Hour podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you have questions, comments, or suggestions for topics, you can find us on Twitter or on our website, hiddenhistoryhappyhour.com. We look forward to joining you next time.
We thank our gifted producers, Jeremy Core and Kate Cruz, and our visionary executive producer, Ivan Williams, without whom this podcast would be, well, history. And thanks also to our art designer, David Wardle.
Cheers.